Welcome to this comprehensive guide on how to set up push and email notifications for almost anything related to your Victron system, which can easily be done through the VRM app. VRM stands for Victron Remote Management, which is the software designed by Victron to monitor anything and everything about your system, including system alerts and notifications. While not required for your system to operate, notifications will take the monitoring of your system to the next level, making sure that no faults or issues go unnoticed, allowing you or a technician to resolve them as soon as possible. However, these notifications aren't only designed to be used in the event of a catastrophic issue. They can actually be used on a daily basis in order to notify you about the general status and changes in your system, such as when the grid is disconnected for cases such as load shedding, or to monitor things such as your current load, making sure it doesn't exceed the inverter's maximum capacity. Other general alerts can also be set up to monitor your battery's state of charge. This will send you a notification when it reaches a certain percentage level, allowing you to take appropriate action, such as lower your connected load, in order to extend the battery's output period. We are going to take a look at setting up all of these alerts in this video, so make sure to watch to the end. With that said, let's get started. The first thing you will need to do is download the official VRM app from either the Google Play or Apple Store. To find it, simply search Victron VRM, which should show you to the official app. Next, click Install and wait for it to download and install on your mobile device. While the VRM is also available through your browser, which can be used to set up the alerts and notifications, it won't allow you to set up push notifications to your phone. The browser version can only be set up to send email and browser notifications. Mobile push notification can only be set up through the app, which is why it's better to use it for this setup process, as it allows us to enable both email and phone notifications at the same time. You can, however, at any time after this setup, disable either or both methods, although it's good to set them up now in case you want to easily reactivate them in the future. Great, so now that the app is installed, let's open it up. This will take you to the familiar VRM login page. Once logged in, you should see all the same system settings as you would when using the browser version of the VRM. Great, now it's time to set up and enable push notifications. To do this, click the hamburger menu icon, represented by the 3 horizontal lines on the top left of the screen. As you are most likely on your system installation page by default, you will need to click the back button in this menu in order to reach the global VRM settings. Here you will see options such as being able to add another installation, preferences, groups, and GX file upload functionality. Click the Preferences option in order to access its submenus, which include options such as your profile, password reset, two-factor authentication, integrations, notifications, dealer details, display preferences, and language settings. For now, we are interested in the notification options, so click this to proceed. This will take you to the notification settings page. Here we can enable email notification as well as push notification to your detected mobile device. By default, and when enabled, email notifications can be sent to your main VRM login email address. Here you can choose to either toggle this on or off. Optionally, you are also able to add secondary emails to your VRM account, giving them either full control or partial control. To do this, you need to go back into the hamburger menu. From there, click on All Installations. Then select a system to which you would like to add another user to. In this case, I will select my system named Jupiter. Once in the main system page, click on Settings, and then click on Users. Here you will see your main VRM email again, as well as the ability to invite more users. I already have a secondary user set up, which I've selected to only have partial control. This is the equivalent of a view-only access level instead of full control, which would give them admin access. I want to stress this point again. Giving a user full control allows them to change settings on all installations for which they have full control rights, so be cautious as to whom you provide this to. However, this is system-based only, so a user with full access on my Jupiter system cannot change settings on my other system called Thor, for example. Below this, you will see all pending invites sent. As I have none pending, this is currently blank for me. To invite another user, simply click the Invite User button. Now you must enter their name or give them a VRM alias, as well as enter their email address. Here again, you can choose to give them either full or partial controls. Lastly, you can optionally add a personal message to the email. Once you click Send, VRM will automatically send them an email with a unique link which they must click to accept. Note that in order to accept the invitation, they first need to create their own VRM login account using their email and a password. Once they've done so, they can click to accept the invitation. At this point, you see them move from the Pending Invitations section to the List of Users section, together with their specified access level. While slightly out of scope for this video, I want to quickly mention that you can add teams here as well. This lets you put multiple users together in a team and then give the team access to installations, making it easy to add a new colleague as well as remove access in case someone leaves the team or company. Note that when creating a new team, you are automatically made the team admin, letting you name the team, invite other VRM users to join, and add users from another existing team. With that said, let's now head back to the push notifications menu to complete the rest of the setup. As a reminder, to do this, we again click the hamburger menu, click back, then click preferences, and then notifications. Now, one thing you will note is that the secondary email I set up does not appear to be here as an option to send notifications to. Only the main email is selectable here. This is fine though, as I will show you how to enable the secondary email when we create our alarms. Below this is the push notification activation setting. Here you should see your mobile device's name and operating system. Mine is a Samsung phone using Android 14, but yours may obviously differ. Either way, all you have to do is toggle this slider on as well. When you do so, you will be taken to a separate system menu of your device, asking you to allow notifications for the VRM app. When you click to enable this, you will be given more options depending on your mobile device's operating system. In Android 14, you are able to set the alert sounds to either be both sound and vibration or to be silent. You also have options between 3 notification types, which includes showing them on your lock screen, as a blue pip badge on the app icon, and as a pop-up window. By default, they are all active, so simply click on any of these that you don't want, which will deactivate them. Below this is another visual option, which will show them when your phone is locked. As these are important notifications for me and they don't contain any private information, I have kept mine all active. Once done, click the back arrow button on the top left of the screen. For some reason, this did glitch slightly for me, whereby it did not enable the push notification slider in VRM. So what I did was to simply click it again, which again took me to the system menu, and again press the arrow button, which seemed to fix the issue. Great, now both email and push notifications are set up for your VRM. Below this is a section labeled Other Devices. This will show any other mobile devices that are linked to this VRM account and have followed all the steps we have just covered. In my case, I have followed this same setup process on an older Samsung phone running Android 11, meaning that all push notifications will be sent to both devices simultaneously. This is great if you are setting up notification for both yourself as the installer and your client. This can also be used if you simply want to add another person, such as a family member, friend, or tenant, to also receive notifications. You can add as many devices as required, but remember that in order to do so, they would need to also download and install the VRM app, then either log into the app using your main VRM credentials, which is not advisable, or you have to first invite them as a user, following the process we covered earlier. They then need to log in using their own VRM login credentials, which they were required to make, in order to accept the invitation, then follow the same steps for enabling notification that we just covered. Note that they don't need to have full control access in order for this to work. You, as admin, can then also revoke any device by simply clicking the cross icon to remove it. With that done, you should send a test notification to make sure everything is working properly. If it is, you should receive an email stating that it's a test email, as well as in any notifications that you enabled on your mobile device. If you didn't receive anything, try pressing it again, as this usually fixes the issue. Before we create our custom alert variables, I want to mention that you can also enable push notifications in your browser, such as Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Firefox, or Safari. To do this, you need to close the VRM app and log into the VRM through your browser. Once there, again, navigate back to the Notifications setting menu by clicking on the hamburger menu, Back, Preferences, and then Notifications. From here, simply enable Web Push Notifications by clicking the slider button. If you get this error message, then your browser might have some security settings enabled, that is, blocking pop-ups and notifications. To check this in Chrome, go to your URL bar and click on the Site Information icon. You will now be shown the current security settings specific to this VRM web page. Make sure that notifications is enabled, as well as pop-ups and redirects. You can also go to this URL at Settings, Content, Notifications in order to access more specific notification settings. If it isn't there already, you must manually add the VRM URL together with port number 443 to the Allowed to Send Notifications section. This should work even if you have Do Not Allow Sites to Send Notifications enabled, as you have manually added the VRM as an allowed override. But to make extra sure for testing purposes, you can set Sites Can Ask to Send Notifications enabled, then choose which format you like. Expand All Requests is the most detailed of the 3 options. For more detailed settings, you can also click on the little arrow icon next to it. This will show you all of the permissions for the VRM site in this browser. Here again, make sure that notifications, as well as pop-ups and redirects, are set to allowed. With the notifications all set up, it's now time to create the alerts and the conditions that will cause them to trigger. As alerts can only be set on a system basis, you will need to go back into your system settings menu. From here, click on Settings, and then on Alarm Rules in the next menu. With no alarm set, you should only see the default communication disconnected and automatic alarm monitoring settings. While these cannot be deleted, they can be deactivated if required. The communication disconnected setting is simply the protocol used to detect if your servo has not sent any communication to the VRM after a set amount of time. When communication monitoring is enabled, the system continuously checks the connection status between the GX device and the VRM portal. To configure and use this feature, make sure it's enabled, then enter the amount of time, in seconds, that should elapse without receiving any data before an alarm is triggered. For example, if your logging interval is set to 15 minutes or 900 seconds, and you set the no data alarm timeout to 10 minutes or 600 seconds, the system will send an alarm after 1500 seconds or 25 minutes of no data being received. The logging interval is found in your servo's settings menu. To find it, go to Settings, then scroll down to VRM Online Portal, then to the log interval. The default value is 15 minutes or 900 seconds. Unless your on-site internet is data limited, I would definitely set this down to its lowest value of 1 minute or 60 seconds. This way, your VRM data is updated as much as possible in relation to your servo. Once done, you can set your communication disconnect alert in relation to this. I have set mine to 600 seconds or 10 minutes plus the 1 minute log interval time that we just set in the servo. Therefore, if my system doesn't receive any data from the servo for 11 minutes, the VRM will send me an alert. Obviously, you can set this lower if you want to be notified sooner. The automatic alarm monitoring feature is designed to simplify the process of monitoring critical parameters across all connected devices in your system. Instead of manually setting up alarm rules for each parameter, this feature automatically monitors this predefined list of parameters and sends notifications if any of them enter an alarm state, as well as the recovery notifications when the parameter returns to its normal value. By default, the feature is set to only alarms, meaning notifications are sent only for alarm states, but you can disable this altogether or enable both warning and alarms for the most comprehensive notification option. Earlier, I mentioned that when setting up the notifications, you were only able to select the main admin account. However, here you can now see all accounts linked to this VRM system. So, if you created a secondary account for a client, family member, friend, or tenant, you can easily enable or disable alarm notifications for them here, as well as for yourself. Now it's time for the fun stuff, configuring our own alarms. Let's start with a simple one, which is to check the internal battery temperature provided by the BMS. To do this, simply click on Add New Alarm Rule. Select the device for which you want to create a new alarm rule. In this case, it will be my internal battery BMS, which is labeled as Battery Monitor 512. Next, we need to find the temperature parameter. This can easily be done by scrolling down the list or by typing the first few letters. Once selected, click the next button. Now, we get to the most difficult part of this process, which is to understand how to set the high and low values in order to create their hysteresis. Hysteresis defines the buffer or range that a parameter must move through before an alarm resets. This buffer ensures that the alarm is not cleared immediately if the parameter fluctuates slightly above or below the threshold, thus preventing nuisance alarms. With that in mind, let's begin by entering the low value. This will be the temperature below which the alarm should be triggered, and will depend on your needs and preferences, but must also be within range of your battery spec sheet. For example, the lowest and safe operating temperature of my lithium phosphate battery is 15 degrees Celsius, or 59 degrees Fahrenheit. Technically, I could actually set it lower, up to a minimum of 0 degrees Celsius, or 32 degrees Fahrenheit, as stated by the recommended charge operational range. It is very important to note that lithium iron phosphate batteries do not like cold weather, especially when charging. When a lithium phosphate battery is charged below 0 degrees Celsius, a chemical reaction called lithium plating occurs. This reaction forces lithium ions to move too quickly, accumulating on the anode's surface. The result is a battery with a higher internal resistance, permanently decreasing the battery's capacity. With that said, setting the low value anywhere above 5 degrees Celsius is a safer bet. I'm not in a cold climate, with my battery only reaching lows of around 19 degrees Celsius, so I will keep this value at 15. Next, I want to enter the temperature above which the alarm should be cleared. This value needs to be slightly higher than the low value to create a hysteresis effect and prevent frequent toggling of the alarm. Therefore, with the low value set to 15, I will set the clear low alarm above value to 20 degrees Celsius. The hysteresis will thus be a 5-degree difference. The same principles apply to the high settings. I would first want to enter the temperature above which the alarm should be triggered. Again, referring to the battery spec sheet, this is 35 degrees Celsius. Although, this is pretty conservative and you could push it to a maximum of 45 degrees Celsius when charging. I'm going to play it safe here and keep it to 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit. This is because I'm in a warmer country and want to be on top of my battery staying cool in summer. Now we need to enter the temperature below which the alarm should be cleared. This needs to be lower than the high value of 35 degrees that we just set. This time I am going to create a larger hysteresis range of 10 degrees Celsius, setting it to 25, in order to be closer to my average battery temperature in summer. This way, when the alarm clears, I know that it is in the safe zone again. Lastly, you want to set the time in seconds that the internal battery temperature must be either below the low setting of 5 degrees Celsius or higher than 35 degrees Celsius before a warning or alert is triggered. This is important to do in order to prevent yourself or others from being spammed by the system in the event of a quick spike or drop in temperature. You can set this as high as you want, with the lowest minimum being 60 seconds. Once done, click the Save button, which will arm the alarm. You will now see the alarm be added to the list, together with your system's current value of that specific element, being temperature in this case. Clicking on it allows you to easily edit all the settings we just set. To delete the alarm rule, simply click on the Delete Alarm button. Great! Let's do another important battery monitoring alarm, which is the battery state of charge, or SoC. To do this, I will again click to create a new alarm, and in my case, choose my battery's internal BMS as the device. Now I'll simply start to type the word state and it should appear in the filtered list. The low value will be when the battery gets to a dangerously low state of charge percentage, or close to it. This will depend on your needs and preferences, but do note that the lowest safe state of charge of lithium phosphate batteries is 20%, making that a good value to enter here. Although you probably want to be warned before it reaches this point in order to lower your loads or manually start a generator. In that case, you could set it to something like 30 to 40% instead. Next, we want to enter the SoC percentage above which the alarm should be cleared. I want to create a difference of at least 10% to avoid unnecessary triggers, so I'll set this to 40%. Now we get to the high values, which is where we run into a bit of an issue compared to how temperature works. You see, with battery temperature, it's important to monitor both the lows and highs in order to avoid the battery from getting too cold or too hot. However, with the state of charge, we only really want to know when the battery is getting low, as what practical need is there to know that it's fully charged? I understand the requirement if you are creating logical conditions, such as an assistant to activate AC out 2 ports when the battery reaches a high enough SoC, but in terms of an alarm, it offers me much less value and also comes with a flaw. Let's enter some values for me to better explain. If I were to enter a high value of 90%, the VRM would send me an alert on my phone and email, while also creating a constant red warning in my VRM when my batteries reach 90% or more. But this is a good thing, so I don't really require a warning to tell me this. However, the biggest problem comes in the fact that in order to clear this warning, the battery has to dip below this value. In other words, it needs to discharge below, let's say 85%, in order for this warning to clear. So unless my battery is discharged, I am going to sit with a big red warning label on my VRM, doing nothing but creating an annoying distraction, especially as this is not a state of emergency. In fact, it's the opposite. And because it is mandatory to fill in these values, I can't choose not to enable them. I have to enter something in order for the alarm to successfully be created. So, like I said earlier, temperature definitely has a purpose in this use case, to make sure the battery isn't overheating. But in terms of state of charge, there really isn't one. To fix this, Victron should make, at minimum, only one set of values mandatory, such as the low and clear low alarm above values. This makes the high values optional and not required. A toggle button to enable either the low, high, or both sets would help facilitate this more practically. Unfortunately, this isn't how it currently works, so what can we do to get around this? Well, as the maximum battery percentage that the battery will ever reach is 100%, we can enter values above this so that the warning and alerts never actually get triggered. A bit of a hack, but it works. Let me show you. First, I'll set my high value to be 102%. I have set it at least 2% higher than 100% because we need to factor in that the high clear trigger needs to be below this high trigger value. This allows me to enter a clear high alarm below value of 101%. This ensures that both this and the 102% alert trigger will be out of range of the max 100% SoC of my battery, which therefore technically only enables the low alert from triggering. A bit of a workaround, but it does the job. Lastly, enter the time in seconds again, and then save the alarm to activate it. You can, as before, change any of the settings afterwards to customize it to your liking. The other type of alarm you can set up is not high and low value based, but rather one that uses conditional on or off states. One of these is to monitor and alert the current state or mode that your VE bus, MultiPlus, or Quattro is currently in. Let's create this alarm for you to better understand. Once again, we will click the Add New Alarm button. Then, from the device list, we will select the MultiPlus and not the battery monitor, as this is the device we want to pull the parameter data from. Next, we will start typing in the word state until we see the VE bus state parameter appear in the list. Click on that, followed by the Next button. Here you will see the difference from the previous alarms that we set up. We cannot set any high or low values here, and therefore no hysteresis either. Instead, you simply select which states of the VE bus device you want to monitor. You can pick and choose as many or little as you like here. If you don't know what a certain setting does, then make sure to check out our in-depth video tutorial series on VE config that explains almost all of these features in detail. For this video though, I am going to only choose the ones that I use in the real world. The first of these is the off state, which will cause VRM to send me an alert should my inverter ever turn off completely. The second one that I use is either the bulk or absorption modes. This is simply to let me know that my battery is busy charging after a discharge. If your system is connected to solar, then this will likely send alerts to you daily, which you might find is too much. However, this system of mine is designed for backup only in case of a blackout, so the alerts are infrequent and not bothersome. I therefore like to activate both the bulk mode, which effectively tells me when the grid power has returned, as well as the absorption mode, which tells me when the batteries are nearly fully charged. To complement this, I also enable inverting mode, which basically tells me when a blackout occurs and that my inverter is now running on the batteries. I find this extremely helpful, as I can then turn off any unnecessary loads to save battery power, as well as to not overload my inverter past its 2400 watt capacity limit during this time, preventing an overload. Remember that each state setting will send both an on and off state alarm, so there is no need to also enable the pass-through state, as the inverter state setting tells you both when a blackout happens and when it ends. For that reason, you could actually do away with having the bulk mode active, as this is technically doing the same thing, therefore only using the absorption state to track the battery state of charge. I personally don't use any of the others, as some, such as equalize, are only necessary for lead-acid batteries. If you have special relays set up, then you may find use for some of them though. The only other one that I may use in the future is power assist. This will let me know when my load has exceeded my max current input limit and that my batteries are now discharging to help with the load, thereby telling me to reduce my load back below the AC current limit. You can find more info on exactly how power assist works in this video. Once you have selected the ones you want, click Next again, set a time delay, and click Save to enable the alarm. Remember, you can always enable and disable any of these after the alarm has been created as well. There is another or additional way that you can actually monitor when the VE bus inverter loses grid power connection. To do this, you will need to go into your Serbo settings. From here, navigate to System Setup. Once there, enable the Monitor for Grid Failure setting. Now, when the grid drops, you will receive a message in your Serbo's notifications page. However, there are two reasons that I don't like or use this method. The first is that it only tracks grid failure and not all the other states available in the alarm settings of the VRM. The second reason is that it makes a very high-pitched and continuous beeping sound, which is beyond tolerable when your inverter is only a few meters away from you. For that reason, I leave this off, but thought it would be good to mention it as well, in case it serves a purpose for you. Beyond this, you can set an alarm for nearly anything on your system, so it really is a very powerful feature set. I definitely won't be going through each of these for obvious reasons, but will just mention a few others that I personally use in my system. The first is measuring ambient temperature, which you can easily do by simply connecting the temperature monitor cable that you receive for free with your MultiPlus or Quattro into your Serbo's temperature sensor ports. This lug point will then measure the ambient temperature around your system, which is generally very useful even without an alarm. You can then also set up another temperature alarm for this in exactly the same way we set up the battery temperature alarm. Another that I use is to monitor my system's total output load. Here I have set the low value to -10 and the low clear value to 0 for the same reason that I explained with the battery high state of charge, which forces me to input numbers here, even though I don't actually need this part of the alarm. I then set the high value to my inverter's max output capacity while inverting, which is 2400 watts, and the clear alarm slightly below that to 2300 watts. The only issue with this is that the inverter is able to push far beyond this limit when not inverting and in pass-through mode. The spec sheet does not show you this limit value, but you can calculate it by taking the max AC input current, which in my inverter's case is 32 amps, and then multiply it by your grid voltage, which in my case is 230 volts. This gives you the total max pass-through mode load of 7,360 watts. So while the 2400 watt alarm is perfect when it's inverting, it's not great for when it's in pass-through mode, as it sends alerts when there isn't actually any issue. In the future, I plan to solve this with some advanced node red setups. I will make a tutorial on this once I have come up with a working solution to have varying wattage alerts based on each state. Until then, I have instead set up an overload alarm. This kind of works the same as the inverter states, except with fewer options, as it directly tells me when my loads are overloading the system. There are many other alarms you can experiment with, so don't be scared to try. It won't break the system in any way, as you aren't changing settings, simply sending alerts. And that brings us to the end of this video. If you've made it this far, I sincerely hope you have enjoyed the content and learned something new. If so, please leave a like and subscribe to support the channel, as well as to get notified of any future videos. Oh, and make sure to check out this video as well. You can also subscribe over here. And this one is pretty cool too. Lastly, don't forget to visit and sign up for a free account at the Blue Power Pro forum.